want to thank the Regina and District Chamber of Commerce for giving us this very impressive vehicle to make an important announcement to our province and to the country. I also want to thank members of the Chamber of Commerce here, and I note that we are joined today by people from as far away as New York, and that there is obviously media here reporting nationally and internationally on the events that we're live on some networks as well. And so, because it's my job, I'm going to do a little promoting. I'm going to say thank you to the businesses represented in this room. Thank you to the people of the province of Saskatchewan for helping to build the new Saskatchewan. For those who are maybe unaware of our province, you are here today or looking in on today, that place in the world that is responsible for about 30% of the world's uranium production and half of the potash reserves and known reserves in the world. More on that in a moment. We're the second largest producer of oil in the country. We supply more oil to the United States than the country of Kuwait. We are home to half of the arable acres in Canada. We have a great innovation economy going in terms of a third of Canada's agricultural biotech community here, leadership in carbon capture and sequestration, soon to be leadership in the area of adding value to the great uranium resource that we have. And we have a very dynamic small business community, have for decades right across this province, that is responsible for a remarkable transformation in Saskatchewan over the last number of years. A transformation that has us now in a leadership position in more than one economic category in our country and in the continent. Our population growth is experiencing the largest year-over-year increase since my dad was 11 years old, 1953. Chartered banks are forecasting we'll lead the country in economic growth next year. There are a number of other statistics, but importantly as well, Saskatchewan people are sharing in this prosperity. The information most recent provided to the province of Saskatchewan is that in terms of earnings, we are now in the top tier of province in terms of growth of wages, and so that tells us that people are benefiting from all the work that is done by our business community. I just wanted to thank you for that. We're going to continue that transformation. We're going to continue with the growth agenda in the province on the part of government and business in partnership. The world has, I think, in many ways tuned in a little bit more to what's been happening in Saskatchewan over the last number of years and certainly over the last number of weeks. If you were watching the Google trends back in August, when the BHP Billiton hostile takeover story broke, you would have seen a real spike in terms of the number of stories with the word Saskatchewan. In fact, we broke our own record in terms of the number of media stories around the world involving the word Saskatchewan at the time of this of the announcement of the hostile takeover. It wiped out the previous record, happily, because the previous record was the 13th man story from the Grey Cup. So there has been some unintended benefits to all of this. I remember a night in August when I got a call from someone who told me that the next day the news would break that the Potash Corp of Saskatchewan would become the target of a hostile takeover bid by BHP Billiton. It was one of those rare nights where Tammy and I had actually organized a date night. We were going to be going to the movie. And the movie we went to that night was Inception. I don't know if you've seen it. It's the new DiCaprio movie, and it's pretty complex. It's one of those movies you got to pay attention to. There's about 7 different dream plots within one dream plot, and I don't remember anything of the movie, I can tell you that. I was thinking mostly about potash and what the implications for what I had just been told might be. Tammy and I are going to have to rent that when it's out on TBD. Immediately upon learning the news, the government of Saskatchewan struck an internal task force made up of representative senior officials in finance and energy and resources, in justice, and in Enterprise Saskatchewan. We retained the services of the Conference Board of Canada to help us provide some qualitative analysis as to the impact of this takeover on the provincial economy and on the revenues for the province of Saskatchewan. We also retained what we think is among the best legal counsel you'll find in Canada when it comes to these kinds of takeovers, when it comes to learning more about and piloting through the Investment Canada review process. I sought the counsel of other premiers. We had a chat, sir. I had a chat with the previous premier, had a discussion with Premier Romano, provided good advice. I talked to Premier Lougheed. I think Premier Lougheed was one of Canada's best premiers in terms of balancing the need to have a brand of a welcoming climate for investment in his province, but also being a careful steward of the resources of his province. And he said what he often says to me. He asked a rhetorical question. He said, "Whose resource is it, Brad?" And I said, "Premier, it's the resource of the people of the province of Saskatchewan." And he said, "You're right. Act like it, and you'll be fine." And we have, and we will. We have engaged with the companies involved in this particular takeover, and some of the companies on the periphery of this potential takeover. We have engaged with them, all along seeking to further the interests of the owners of the resource, the people of the province of Saskatchewan. And we have sought through this process to make sure that we were balancing the protection of our strategic interests, the protection of this resource that we have, with the need for us to continue with this brand improvement that you've been a part of that has made Saskatchewan not a great place to be from, but a great place to be. We want to build on our brand as a place where investment from all over the world is welcome, and we have sought throughout this process to balance that against the need to also protect, for future generations, the strategic interests of Saskatchewan. We have used in our analysis the metric that the federal government uses to measure whether or not these takeovers are good or bad, and it's a net benefit analysis. This process asks the question, is there a net benefit to Canada, to Saskatchewan, of this proposed takeover? We have applied that net benefit analysis in 3 different areas. Number 1 is jobs. Number 2 is revenue, your revenue, the rent you should be getting for the resource that you own. And number 3 is this concept of what about our strategic interests in the world going forward. Let's start with jobs. Let's take BHP Billiton's comments about full production at face value. That added production would place current expansion plans now being pursued by other players, we believe, in potential jeopardy. Currently, Mosaic and Agrium, the other companies, are undertaking about $6 billion of expansion of their assets in the province. That's 750 permanent direct jobs, 8,000 person years of construction in those particular projects. And if the production model is flat-out production, we know what that will do to price, and I think the companies will tell you that those jobs are then potentially at risk. What about Canpotex? It is an agency that BHP Billiton, quite honestly, has said they're not interested in a long-term relationship with. But it is an agency that's very well respected. It has served your province very well. It has carved out a position for us in the world stage and in the potash market. And yesterday, Canpotex announced a 3-year deal with China. A 3-year deal with Sinopharm, covering 3.15 million tons of potash at a price to be negotiated every 6 months. If the takeover goes ahead, and when Billiton then eventually pulls out of Canpotex, that's potentially 88 more jobs at risk, most of them in the province of Saskatchewan, most of them high-level international marketing jobs, and there's more to consider. Canpotex is right now analyzing, and I think getting close to making a positive decision on a new rail car maintenance and staging facility. The preferred site is the Potash Corp mine at Lanigan. Phase 1 of the project is $55 million invested here in the province, 120 person years of employment for construction, 20 full-time jobs. If the future of Canpotex is in question, does that project go ahead? I don't know. Add to this the announcement last year from Canpotex on the planned expansion of shipping capacity on the West Coast at a cost of $500 million. This includes a new terminal facility on Ridley Island near Prince Rupert, along with a separate expansion right beside the existing terminals at the Port of Vancouver. Construction of at Prince Rupert will create about 600 person years of employment during the construction phase and 60 full-time jobs in British Columbia. But this is a Canadian question that we're engaged in today. If the future of Canpotex is in question, what about those jobs? BHP Billiton has been very honest about their plans for shipment of potash. They want to build their own terminal in Vancouver, Washington.